We have
And Benjamin.
Ben Schauer here tonight. Yay. Hi, Ben.
Hello.
All right, tell us about what you're running for, what district you're in, and all the good stuff.
Yeah, totally. So I'm Benjamin Schauer. I live in Dunlap on the western side of the state, about an hour northeast of the Omaha Council Bluff Metro, right there. And I'm running for Iowa House of Representatives in District 15, so that covers all of Harrison County and then a rural swath of Pot County, right just east there of Council Bluffs. So McClellan, Underwood, Crescent, Honey Creek, and just kind of a little weird thing around Trainer as well there. So a very rural district overall, but. Yeah, it's my second time running. I got in 2024, ran against leader Matt Winchell, who's now running for Congress. Lucky us. But I ran against that because there's no one else on the ballot, and I was asked to do it. So I said sure, and I didn't have time to do it then. And I was thrilled with the progress that we made, and I said that I would give it another go and actually have time to do it right this time. And I've really enjoyed that process this time, getting out there earlier, talking with people, getting just getting it rolling. It's amazing that we're in January, and I've already knocked a ton of doors, had some fundraisers, whereas last time it was almost almost the end of April before we really got going. So it's amazing being this far into it this time around. But I'm looking forward to having a chat with both of you about all the fun stuff.
Yeah. Do you have a primary opponent?
Not at this time. So I am the lone wolf in the Democratic primary. There's three running for the Republican, and we have an independent as well. So could be a
Wow.
very robust race, which I'm excited about that. Typically, we kind of joke in our county for a long time that people took turns running on the ballot for the Democratic ones. So it's very rare that we have someone that wants to actually step up and do it. And the fact that we have three Republicans as well as primaries make us better, and then an independent, like the more the merrier, and that definitely changes the name of the game in terms of how the race is going to go in November. So I'm anxious to see what happens as the year goes along.
Awesome. What do you think makes you different from other Democratic candidates or your Republican opponents, your independent opponent, all of the above?
Yeah. I mean, I've got the credentials to run, so I mean, a lot of us do at that. I think that I actually grew up very conservative, a Republican actually, in a Republican household. So I've got lot of good a lot of good background around why a lot of my friends and neighbors feel the way that they do, because I believe that way at one point as well. And my shift happened at the end of college there, and 2016 was kind of the big shift for me in my mind, is when I'm like, okay, this is something has to shift, and I'm gonna kind of shift gears here a little bit to get that going. But I really think that that gives me a unique perspective on the district, because a lot of my views come through a lens of a very different perspective at one point that's still very much embedded in kind of how I grew up and a lot of my family as well. I am the liberal sheep in my family. There's a few of us that are Democrats, but most of my family is still Republicans. My aunt actually served in the state house for a long time in central Iowa as well as a Republican. So like we've got a lot of ties with the Republican Party from her perspective there, and it's just one of those things that I think that really gives me a lot of in with people, that I can talk the language, I can understand their concerns, and I can walk them through how I came to my way of thinking as well, while still respecting their beliefs without belittling them, if you would.
Okay. That's really cool, actually, that you kind of not that you like found your way out of it, right? Which yes and no. I think like it's if you would have asked me 15 years ago if it was like a bad thing to be a Republican, I would have been like, no. I probably would have said that I was somewhere in the middle of the both things, right? But it does seem as they pull a little bit farther conservative and to the right that it's like kind of a little coming out of, a cult situation, for lack of a better term, to describe that. And I think it's really cool to talk to people who have, changed views based on the people that they've met and the experiences that they've, had themselves. So that's really neat. Okay, next question is, do you have a favorite political TikToker or podcaster or anything in that kind of realm?
Um, I really do enjoy Liz from Iowa. Her content it's a good mix of just unhinged silliness sometimes with her own personal life, just as well as some really nice just really nice information as well. And she's really ramped it up the last couple of months as well. It's just been nice to see that. So I don't do a lot of podcasting. I do a lot of audiobooks actually, just because I need that stability. Sometimes in my life, I get a lot of my news through reading print media. I don't do a whole lot of uh, actual like live media because anything news related just stresses me out as you get people's opinions with that. But yeah, that's probably the biggest one that I enjoyed watching. That and the under the desk news as well is always one of my favorites
See, I
to
love
watch that
Under
one
the
as
Desk.
well. So it's just it makes me happy some days and just frustrated other days, but it's just nice that it's a good variety of stuff, and they do such a good job of delivering that in a way that's it's just calming even if it's stressful. Like it
Right?
doesn't get you riled up like some, and that's the danger with social media is
Hmm.
you get some people that is their whole goal is to get you riled up, and that's a lot of the problem with our political process sometimes is that we have people that deliver news in ways that's not always
Accurate.
fair and accurate as well. Yes, and they intentionally get you riled up, and I just shake my head sometimes especially as the algorithm has shifted on TikTok, for example. Like, oh my gosh, like there's some days that I'm like, I
It's
don't
a
know what
lot.
I did to end up here, but here we are. But just looking at some of the news that's coming out, and how they portray it, I'm like, that's not accurate, and the way you're doing it is going to make people really mad, and people buy into that, and that's a big issue just in society in general, and as a teacher too, watching my students and how they consume media and just general media literacy with people, not just my students, but seeing how that starts at a young age and how we've got a fantastic teacher that does a really good job of helping with that, but watching them get work through that with her is always an interesting thing from where they start and where they end, and that's definitely an issue we see in a lot of our politics now is people just don't know how to consume it responsibly. And it's not just your old folks online that are reading fake news articles there. It's young folks as well. It's everybody that just don't know how to consume it properly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm gonna jump in here for the viewers. If you are intaking content on places like TikTok and it's all bad news and there's no good news included in the video or an action item at the end of the bad news, that is a doom creator. They're making money off of scaring you. You should probably block the creator.
Yeah. Layla actually went on and chatted with somebody a couple months ago, maybe. And she's on TikTok. Well, she's on, I think, all of the platforms, but it's Amanda's Mild Takes.
Okay.
Um, she is phenomenal. She's super, super, super educated with like history, and she does these deep dives. And I mean, she can be a little doom, but also does a really good job of balancing that out and reminding you that things are really bad, but it's not the end of the world. Like we're
Mhm.
going to fix this. It's going to take time, but it's not all exploding. We're going to be okay. It's scary and uncomfortable, but like, she does a really good job. So I would definitely suggest checking her out because I'm a big fan. And
Okay.
Layla will jump in on this. We listen to the I've Had It podcast um, because those ladies are phenomenal and kind of our idols because they're mean too.
Yeah,
And
I love it.
they're mean to everybody. They're mean to Democrats, they're mean to Republicans. They do not care. If you have done something questionable, they are calling you out. And I
As
appreciate
it should be. As
that.
it should be.
As it should be. Um, we get a lot of questions. We see a lot of questions. We have a lot of people ask. And there's a lot of obvious online discourses, of course, about PAC money
Mhm.
specifically. And being that I know you've run before and you've been in the political lane enough to know the difference between PAC money and advocacy PAC money, like corporate PAC money
Mhm.
and advocacy PAC money.
Yes.
So we always ask if you plan to take or are willing to take corporate PAC money for your campaign.
No, I'll take advocacy PAC money. So I've like the IACA, for example, I'm an IACA member, so they generously donate some for that. Same with the Western Iowa Labor Federation. So yes, advocacy, yes. Corporate, definitely not. Big money is it is the biggest issue in our political process. We saw in Western Iowa here in our last race, we saw a couple of well, yeah, Josh Turk's race and then Steve Gorman running for Iowa Senate over there, and they dumped $500,000 into both of their races right there from the other side. And Josh was able to prevail and won by a good margin there. But it's hard to come up against, and I really do think that's why Steve fell short in his race against Dan Dawson down there was because they dumped all kinds of money and like close to $500,000, I believe it was for Steve's race, and you can't keep up with that type of money when they're buying negative ads and they're just papering your district with falsehoods and just negative, negative, negative. And the sooner we get that out of our political process, the better off we're going to be.
Yes, completely agree with all of that. Advocacy packs for the win, obviously. I think the difference between corporate packs and advocacy packs, you're taking money from people that are trying to do good for people, and corporate packs are
Mhm.
obviously just trying to do good for rich people who already have enough money. So, Layla, next question's yours.
Got it. Okay, so if we look at the legislature as if it's like college, where you pick a major and you pick a minor, where are you majoring and where are you minoring?
Education is the major, definitely, just because it's where I live all the time, and we need more teachers in the legislature because they know what's up and they know what we need, and they need to be in the room advocating for teachers and bringing them into the room to make those decisions. As for a minor, anything rural needs more strong voices in there, and not just someone that's always in the agricultural field for their profession as well. We need other rural folks in there that are not just farmers, and farmers are very important to have on those committees as well. But we need a wide variety of voices to make sure that we're meeting the needs for our rural spaces because, quite frankly, they're dying in a lot of our rural communities, and we have to do something before it's too late.
Yeah, I agree completely as where we are. We live in
Yes.
like Grundy County, which
Mhm. Gotcha there.
what are some ways that you're active in your community?
Oh goodness. Let me count the ways. I'm a teacher first of all, so I wear a lot of hats with the district. I'm 5 to 12 band here and co-teach some choir. I do the drama and student council and curriculum director, so that takes a lot of time there. I'm also currently on the Dunlap City Council as well, so I was appointed to the seat in 2020 and I've won twice in my own right since then. So I'm serving my second full term right now. I'm on the Dunlap Community Development Corporation. That's a mouthful. Board DCDC is what that is. So we're responsible for basically bringing a new business to Dunlap and just prioritizing beautification and revitalization, which has been a fantastic asset there. And then I just volunteer any chance that I get with different committees, whether that be the Fourth of July committee. We help with the food booth in the for our big celebration every year is a big fundraiser for the music department. I've led the community band, the community choir for its Centennials. So I get involved there. I accompany a church choir north of us just a little bit there. I'm very active in my own church as well in the music department and do a lot of freelance piano playing for various churches as well as funerals and weddings in the area. So I'm all over the place. Whenever somebody needs something, I typically try to be there. And then I sit on a community theater board as well for the Western Iowa Arts Association. I direct in the summertime. I'll take the summer off this year just because I need to focus on the election. But the last 4 summers I've been involved in various production, whether being the director or the assistant director with that as well. So I keep myself pretty busy as a
Yeah,
result.
it sounds like it. It's good. I like to see when candidates are active in their community because if you're not, how do you know what your community needs? And then it's
Exactly.
why are you running? Kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah. What would you say your top priorities are? And they can't be healthcare, water quality, or education.
Because those are really big ones right there. Campaign finance reform is a big one for me, and that's something that really, I don't know why I don't talk about that more, but it's something that really is a big issue, especially after seeing what went down in Council Bluffs and ensuring that we have limits on donations here in the state of Iowa, because that it's just ridiculous that we can pump that much money into folks right there. Other than healthcare, water, and education, though, just rural revitalization in general, that comes to ensuring that we have adequate housing in these areas, making sure that we have strong jobs in these areas, ensuring that we have fair wages in these areas as well. So raising the minimum wage, for example, like Nebraska, I can be in Nebraska in about 30 minutes from where I live right now. They just went up to a $15 minimum wage, and that's kind of a slap in the face. And we're 7 and a quarter still just across the river. You have people that can literally just drive across in Council Bluffs to Omaha and make more than twice as much at that point and still live in Council Bluffs and basically uh, take all their business elsewhere, and that's unfortunate for us. So, the state likes to say that it's a local control issue, but then whenever they've slapped down, whenever other municipalities have tried to raise it up, they slap that down as well. So, and local control is the third big issue. As a city councilman, as well as a school employee, we've seen multiple times over the last couple of sessions where they've basically just attempted to derail our ability to govern ourselves and do our own things. Curriculum for the schools, for example, is a big one to where they've been making sweeping statements for what we can and can't teach, for what they think is best for our communities, for issues that, quite honestly, they weren't even issues, like critical race theory. We weren't seeing that in our school districts. Like it's the big boogeyman. They're trying to make SEL, so social emotional learning. They're trying to make into the next boogeyman that we shouldn't be teaching these things to kids. When you look at how we have to teach reproductive health, for example, and they've made it to where we can't use any sort of resource that's from sources that provide any sort of abortion care. That really limits the places that we can do that from, and it doesn't always reflect the needs of what our community has. Like in my district, for example, we've had a lot of teen pregnancies in the last 10 years since I've worked here, and I attribute that to the fact that a lot of our schools don't have comprehensive sex education programs, and that needs to be fixed. But we can't talk about those things because the state doesn't think that we should be talking about that, and that's smacking for a political party that talks a lot about small government and local control. They have a really funny way of inserting themselves on issues that they deem most important for them and making it more big government in that regard. So that local
Yeah.
control issue is really important for me too, because it's what we need in some of these areas, but we're not able to do what's best for our communities, and that's killing a lot of our ability to do our jobs well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can't. I just get so irritated when I think about things like the Baby Olivia video. And it's just like scientifically inaccurate information that we have to show kids. God, I'm sorry.
I think with legislation last year, though, I think the Baby Olivia video
It wasn't
broke it.
forced on us. It's
Right.
recommended. That's one of the ones that we could do. So they
Yeah.
wanted to force that one to be the one that
Yeah.
was there. And a lot of schools are going through with that because it's one of the only ones they can find that some of the requirements are you have to show ultrasounds at certain stages of development, starting in, I believe it's the fourth or the fifth grade, depending on the gender there. And it's very explicit for what we have to teach and the photos we have to show and the conversations, how we say that. It's the same with the history curriculum for how we have to introduce certain concepts and topics and historical figures that we have to cover and the way we can and can't talk about that thing. It's all about dictating a certain way of doing it. Um, that meets a certain narrative that doesn't allow for any sort of other discourse beyond what they want to go through. And that should, regardless of how somebody feels about that, that should really concern anyone because if they're willing to do it with those basic things in our schools, what else are they willing to do that on? It's like the eminent domain issue. If they're willing to let that go for a corporation, what else are they willing to do? And that's another big issue for me as well, especially here in the rural West. If they, I'll give kudos where it lands with the Senate and the House that they did attempt to get that through, and it was Governor Reynolds that pushed back on that bill and vetoed it. That shows you that anyone else that it. If a politician can buy you like that, what else is fair game? Like my house where I live could be used for eminent domain if a corporation could prove that it was going to be public use. Your private property is at stake at that point for private use, and that's not okay. Just a
Yeah,
lot of inconsistencies with their general idea of freedom-loving Americans that I like to point out whenever I can.
yeah. Do you support the private school voucher program?
I don't support it. I've been a very vocal advocate against the voucher program, the educational savings account, as they're called officially there. Slush funds is what I also call them if I'm feeling feisty, depending on the day. But the unfortunate thing that we're dealing with them right now is that they're here to stay, at least for the short term. As much as I'd like to say, let's just get rid of them, you'll have to have a democratic trifecta at this point, I think, to do away with them in any sort of in any sort of the form. And even then, it's going to be a huge political fight because we have a lot of students that are benefiting from them because they're getting out of systems that weren't working for them. And I think when we talk about vouchers, we don't talk about them in the right way. I think that we're so reactionary with this idea that they're bad. And fundamentally, I don't support the idea of the voucher because we're taking public money to giving it to private schools without oversight. I want to make that very clear. Like I fundamentally don't agree with that idea. Um, but at the same time, we're not talking about why a lot of families feel that they need to get their kids out of these districts, because there are families that weren't using them before that are taking their kids out. And I really want to get to the root of why schools are struggling so much and why these parents don't feel supported in their school district. And we don't want to talk about those issues. We just want to, and that's one of my issues with the Democratic Party in general, is to, we just want to say vouchers bad and that's all. And we don't want to talk about the other issues because there are issues within the educational system. There is bloat in the educational system. As someone that works in the educational system, I can attest to that. And a lot of our schools do a really good job of trying to downplay that, but there's so much bureaucratic red tape sometimes of stuff that we have to do that it can get in the way sometimes. But I think in the short term, what can happen to address this issue of oversight is that they do need to be held to the same standards. It is public money, and so there should be public oversight with that. They should have to be responsible for how they spend those dollars. They should have to go towards certain things, and they should have to be held to the same type of standards in terms of allowing students into the building. So they should have to accommodate all sorts of accommodations like IEPs and 504 plans. They shouldn't be able to openly discriminate based off of sexuality or gender or other status. You know, if a kid comes out as gay or pregnant, they shouldn't be able to kick them out because they don't fit that mold, or if they're failing, they shouldn't be able to just boot them out either, unless it's, especially if they're on an IEP or a 504. So that's where we can find ways to still make that work in the system right now as we work to backtrack them. But any candidate that says we're just going to eliminate them next year if we flip, like if we have a Democratic governor, or we flip one chamber, like that's just, we're just telling people what they want to hear, and it sounds nice, but that's not going to happen at this point, versus the last time that I ran, where the vouchers weren't a thing yet at that point. So that's where we don't want these here, and then they became a thing at the end of that cycle. But it's just we have to be very mindful of these things before we just rattle off all these nice talking points. We actually have to talk about the issues as they are, not just like we want them to be. Does that answer your question? Sorry, I went off. That's one of my
Yeah, it does.
one of
I
my
think,
latest
yeah, you did
tangents.
a good job. I think with Democrats running, it's kind of split between the end goal should be eventually in a perfect, setup in government, sh they should disappear. We should not have private.
We shouldn't have a need for them. If the public school can do their job appropriately, then there shouldn't be a need for a parent to ever want to take their kid out unless they just want a different type of education. Because I really do have a lot of issues with that public money going to a private school, that we don't have any control over that, especially as they're dictating to me as a public school teacher what I can and can't teach. They're accusing me of indoctrination, and you send them to a private school and they don't have to follow the same rules. I sat in a legislative coffee down here, and I'm sorry for interrupting you there, but I sat in a legislative coffee about the cell phone ban that we had earlier this year, and I fully support, or last year, I should say, and I fully support that's one of the best things that's ever happened to us, in terms of just the lack of cell phones in our students' hands all the time. The rollout was not as good as it should be. The legislature basically, they're kind of the bad guys, but we still had to be the one to implement it. But I was point blank told by my state senator, Mark Costello, that the reason that private schools didn't have to follow the rules is because they're private schools. And I said, if the issue is mental health, as they kept claiming, then why are we not concerned about the private school kids as well? And he says, well, that's their prerogative as private schools. They can do what they want. And that's my issue. That's the fundamental issue there is, it's not about making schools better. It's not about really giving them choice. It's about giving these other schools resources to let them do what they want to do without oversight. And I know some fabulous private school teachers. We have some really wonderful private schools in my area that do a really good job. That I don't doubt that they're teaching good things and they're not doing, like, their curriculum is solid. Like, I see good things from them, but not every school is that way. But regardless how good that school is, they still shouldn't be getting public money without any sort of oversight or rules there. And I hope that they'll continue their willingness to take any student that wants to come in and work with them to the best of their abilities. But that's not the case for, like I said, that's not the case for every school that operates under that private mantle.
Yeah. If you could pass legislation on a petty grievance, what would it be? And my biggest example is I support public transportation for all of the obvious reasons. It's accessible, it's affordable, it's good for the environment, blah, 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 all of the good things, but also to reduce traffic and to get bad drivers off the road.
Hmm. Oh, petty grievance. Oh, I've never been asked that before. Oh, now I'm stumped. Now I should have gone back and watched all the videos ahead of time so I was prepped for this. Oh goodness. Oh, it's kind of a cop out, but I would say that, and this just because I'm a teacher and they have to I have to deal with all the bad legislation that comes out for education, but I would like to see every legislator have to sub at least one day a session in a public school. Like they have to go in and they have to be in
Mm.
the public school for the entire day, just so they can see what's going in their district. They have to go to each school in their district and they have to just interact, whether that be during, I guess, during session, out of session, at some point during that year, they have to go in and just that's kind of my wild fantasy. I guess otherwise, election day should be a national holiday. Like that should be our state holiday at the very least, since we're not talking national right now. But it should just be a holiday that people have off and that they can go and vote because it's ridiculous that it's not. Like a lot of other countries get that off, and it's just a nice way to encourage people to go out and vote. And yes, there are rules that allow people to take so much time off of work, but not everyone knows that, and not
And
every
not every
employer is kind.
employer, yeah.
It's kind enough to inform their employees or be respectful if they choose to take that
Mhm.
as well. Not to mention the
Neither
fact
of
that
those are a
sometimes,
cop out. Both of those are stellar
They're both
answers.
good.
Those are really good. Especially having legislators spend a day in school. I I love that. I would wholeheartedly support that.
You are up. We're at number 12.
You missed one again.
okay,
Did I really?
Number
Oh my
8.
gosh, this is the second time I've forgotten that one.
I
I
know.
don't know
Meg
why I keep.
highlighted it.
So this one is probably one of the most controversial questions in the interview.
okay.
And it's cats or dogs and why?
Um, oh, well, first, I'm not allowed to have animals where I live, first of all. So I live in a parish, a house actually. So I'm not allowed to have them in there. We never had animals growing up. So, and my students would tell me that I would kill both of them on accident because I killed my fish every time that I've had fish. So I think the safe answer is like I shouldn't have any animals. Just because I have a really bad track record with the fish that I've had. Although I've had an exchange student since August and he's still alive. So that's good. So that's like, I mean, so that's
Happens.
positive. Um, I would probably say a cat, and I like both cats and dogs, but I think I'm just gone so much. I don't think that I would feel really bad about having to leave a dog like all day, and then like I'll work 12, 14-hour days at the school some days. Like I've got pet bed tomorrow night, for example, so I get to school at 7:30, and I probably won't be home until after 9 just because the game goes so late, and I've got a musical rehearsal after school tomorrow. So like I would feel really bad about not being able to spend time with that versus cats who typically do a lot better with a little bit more isolation than the dogs do and don't need to go out and take the walks and all that fun stuff. So just for the sake of the animal, a cat, I think.
That's
So,
valid. That's valid.
but my
I'm the
students would say
person.
don't give me either because I'll probably end up accidentally killing it because I'm bad with my fish. So if they watch this, they'll cheer at that answer.
Yeah.
At least you've kept the human alive.
Right.
That's true. Like
That's
that
good
is
job there.
true.
Yeah.
I do think the fish is the water issue though, so that leading back to the water issue that we're not allowed to be my top issue, that I think the water
Right.
did kill my fish. So so that
Probably.
there's another unfortunate thing about our water.
The water in Iowa is killing our fish, our
Killing our
goldfish.
fish. You know,
All right.
lot
So,
of issues.
yeah, so many issues. If we just started like if we named the issues, we'd probably never get off of here. We'd be on Zoom for like
No.
6 days straight. Um,
Oh yes.
so the next question is what would you consider valid experience for someone running for Iowa House?
Would you say that one more time for me?
What would you consider valid experience for someone who's wanting to run for Iowa House?
Hmm. That's a really complex question for a couple of reasons. Because I really do think that we need a wide variety of people that work in the legislature. Like if we have the same type of person with the same pedigree, then that really does make that hard to have a good sense of a good sense of representation of the whole state, because not everyone in the state is college educated. Not everyone in the state has a farming background. Not everyone in the state is from the state. Like I'm not from the state of Iowa. And a lot of people think that that's the first thing that qualifies you. But honestly, the fact that that I've been in Western Iowa for 10 years and I've stayed, I think that that's a good reason for what qualifies me is because I fell in love with this community. I thought I'd leave after 2 years and head back to the eastern side of the state, but yet here I am, and I think that right there qualifies me. So I guess I guess just to say it, I don't think that there is necessarily a metric that in terms of profession or experience that necessarily makes you qualified to do it, as long as you've got a passion for the people of Iowa, that you have a willingness to listen and legislate according to what the people need and what they want. And do it fairly. That's not being influenced by your own personal ideology and biases. That you're willing to have an open mind with that. I mean, other things help. I mean, being an educator for me is a very helpful thing because it gives me patience in all things in all things, and it gives me a lot of experience there. And being a city councilman, that gives me a lot of experience from that legislative side where we're having to do this type of work on a much smaller scale and seeing how the impacts of the state do affect us. But that doesn't necessarily make me any better than someone else that's lived in the community for 40 years and that's farmed all this time that knows a whole lot. And we see that all over the state as well as we have just a wide variety of people that runs. So I don't know if that really answers your question, but I think it's a really
Yeah.
hard metric to do. As for me, like I said, I've stayed here. Like the education really helps me. I've got a passion for the people, and I think in terms of our current and previous representation here, like I am actually out and talking to people. I'm actually wanting to know what's on their mind, and I'm trying to do better by the community that I've chosen to make home, and just wanting to do best by it. And ultimately, that is what matters in the long run. You can make a politician out of anyone in that rate,
We
as long
completely
as they
agree with
care.
that. Yeah, we started asking that question because there was actually a candidate south of us that was posting a lot about how there's too many candidates running right now without that don't have experience, that
Hmm.
don't, and we were like, well, what is experience, right? Because this
Hmm.
job pays you $25,000 a year. So it's
Right.
not, you're not going to college for years and years and years to do this. Like you have to just love the state and love the people in it. So
Hmm.
we like to get different perspectives on what kind of experience people find as a valid experience. And
Yeah.
so far, everybody is, for the most part, everybody answers the same way, while there's career paths that are helpful and can be very helpful in legislation, it's more about wanting better for people and wanting to work for your communities and things like
Right.
that.
Right.
Um, so with campaigning is exhausting. Um, what kind of keeps you going?
I think I just have to do it. Like that's my mentality is I just do it. There's no other option for me not to. I've always run a very hard pace going into this campaigning season. I've backed off on some of my other commitments temporarily, just had a little bit of a pause. Like I won't be directing this summer, for example, with the theater. I let my board know that I will support them with their upcoming productions, whatever they need. I'll be there for shows. I'll be there for some rehearsals, giving some feedback. But in terms of taking like a production role, like I need to step off. So that helps a lot is kind of prioritizing my life around those things. But I think just knowing that someone has to do the work. I think like today, I had like an hour and a half that I went out door knocking. I'm like, I could just not do it, but at the same time, like I have to do that because someone has to do this work. And it ended up being a really fruitful day of talking with people for the hour and a half that I ended up out there with some really good conversations, and that's why we keep doing it. Otherwise, I think I crash like every 2 weeks. I get like 12 hours of sleep on like a Friday night, and then I'm good to keep going again. Like this nonstop is nothing new for me. So I'm used to the grind and I'm used to getting that done. It's about prioritizing your schedule and just keeping that going as best as you can, making sure you get sleep when you can, drinking lots of water, eating as best as you can, and just keeping going because there are things bigger than us, and this work is really important, and I have to make sure that it gets done. So I don't see that as an alternative. When I do get a chance to have the little bit of downtime that I get, because I'm also working on my PhD at the same time because I'm not a glutton
Oh my
enough for
gosh.
punishment, you know. So I'd say my writing breaks as I work through my dissertation, slowly but surely are kind of a little bit of a break, but like I'll read for myself sometimes. I binged Grace and Frankie. I watched the whole thing over Christmas break. Was kind of a nice guilty thing that I just basically laid in bed for like one day for like 12 hours. I'm like, I'm just going to
Nice.
lay here and do nothing else because I just need to exist for for a little bit of time. But I'll just do small things like that for myself, and then a little bit of travel here and there. I've got family all over the place, and when I'm gone, I disconnect hard. I'm like, if I'm disconnected, like it is a true like I might see what you send me, but I'm not going to respond. So I guess not true disconnect, but a disconnecting from people. I'll be aware of what's going on, so I'm not blindsided when I get back, but I'll just still be like, nope, no response today, because I try to set boundaries like that for myself, which is something that's been difficult for me to learn, but as I've tried to juggle my schedule, that's been really important to set those boundaries for myself, which is something I recommend every candidate is to set those boundaries and like make sure you stick to them because if you don't, people will take advantage of you and you will just end up frustrated and everyone will end up cranky. It's better to set yourself up as someone that is consistent with how you set those boundaries than someone that kind of waffles back and forth. And I learned that the hard way a few times in my past. So you just make it consistent, and then people just expect that's how we're going to operate whenever we say that when they say you're going to disconnect, they know you're not going to get back to them for a couple of days. So,
Yeah, that's true. And we talked to another candidate earlier. I don't remember which one it was that we were talking about this, but how you have to kind of set those boundaries because in this lane of work and in politics and in government, everything is on fire all the time. And so it's kind of just nonstop go, and you have to be able to kind of disconnect and take some time to yourself to stay healthy and like
yes.
mentally healthy.
Yeah.
Um,
It's also
so
really important to have, oh, sorry. It's also really important to have someone that you can just vent to as well. Like my good friend, the Pot County Chair, Lisa Lima, is like my go-to person if I need someone to just politically to just kind of vent with. And I've got good friends as well, but like you need a political venter as well. Like this
right,
person will listen to what I have and what's going on, and they will be like, okay, dumped, we're good. So that's
right,
also helpful as well.
for sure.
So
What would you
sorry.
say? No, you're good. What would you say is your hottest take? So your most controversial take, opinion.
Hmm. Again, this is there's so many things, so many ways to go with that. Um, I guess and this goes back to again coming from my roots of not always being a Democrat. There, I think that flavors a lot of how I operate. I think that my hot take, and it just goes to the establishment in general and just political parties in general, is party loyalty is important, but it's also overrated. I consider myself a strong Democrat. I'm a progressive. Like my favorite president is FDR. Like I am like Eleanor is my favorite. His wife Eleanor is my favorite human ever. She should have been president. Had she been born
Common.
40 years later. Yeah, had she been born 40 years later, that would have happened. Like I fully believe that. But um, I think that this. And this doesn't come from just the fact that, I'll knock on a door and someone will say, "What party are you?" And I'll be very blunt about it, and they'll just like, "No, thank you," and slam the door in my
Yeah,
face. Like
yeah,
that's its own issue. But I also think because we identify so much as these parties that sometimes we're not willing to talk about issues that the other side is sometimes talking about. We see this in the legislature with the Republicans where they don't want to let a good bill come through the House that's or the Senate that's sponsored by a Democrat. It's really hard to as a Democrat to get a bill across the floor that you initially sponsor. And a lot of Democrats will let their bills die or be taken over by a Republican just to get it through. Like there's a lot of really good legislation out there that Democrats have started and Republicans have started as well. We also have to give them credit for when they do good
yeah,
things because not every Republican is a bad person. There are good Republicans and there are bad Democrats. And I think we have to reckon with that fact. And I think that we have to be open-minded about how we approach policy is just because a Republican says it doesn't mean it's a bad idea. And
right.
just because a Democrat says it doesn't mean it's a good idea either. Sometimes we think within the confines of that party structure way too much, and we have to be willing to look outside the box. That's why we a large number of people that are registered non-party or independent
Oh
or
yeah.
some other third party complete is because they see this do or die kind of mentality with it, that if you don't fully support that party line, you are ostracized and you are kicked out of the party essentially. And if you don't follow that party line and if you don't completely fall in with whatever the party is saying, then you don't have a future within that. And I think that's a really crummy way to run a party. And going back to like, I'm a big FDR now, and I'm working through a biography right now of him, and like looking at the New Deal coalition, you had a wide berth of people, and you had some terrible people in that coalition that also did some good. Good to get some other stuff passed. And I'm not gonna say everything in that was what in that was great, but um, we really can't call ourselves the big tent party if we aren't willing to listen to other ideas outside of what the party faithful says. We have to be willing to accept other ideas that might be outside of our comfort zone, or be willing to listen to ideas and not just shut them down because we're ideologically opposed. At that point, we're just as bad as the other side that does the same thing. We're that and that's what turns people off of that the political party. I had a conversation today about the two-party system and how that's the big issue with it. So
Yeah.
I guess that'd be my biggest hot take is we just have to be independent thinkers sometimes. We're better whenever we have independent thought within our political parties, and we don't punish people just because they have an opinion different than what everyone thinks they should be thinking.
Right. Yeah. We it gets said a lot between like in our house and when we're doing these and when we're working on insufferable and stuff, that even a broken clock is right twice a day. Um, so sometimes those things, they do have, I mean, geez, I got online, I want to say yesterday maybe, and I saw Brenna Bird, who I have lots of issues with, is putting forth some actually really, really good legislation. And that is great. And I hope that, it is what it seems to be on the outside
Right.
and that it passes through because it's important legislation. Um,
Yeah.
I also know that some of that legislation was also proposed last year by other people and was, thrown away.
Yep.
So that's a little frustrating, but we'll take it wherever we can get it from, right?
Right. But that goes
So
back to the fundamental issue, though, that they won't accept an idea that's good if it's by the other side. Like that's the same thing with Trump right now with the 10% cap on the credit card that was not originally proposed by him. That came from I think it was AOC and Bernie Sanders, if I recall correctly. Like it's one of those things that his base is jumping. This is a great idea. I'm like, well, we've seen it before, and
it
they
was a
they
great
shot that
idea the
down.
last time too. I know it's
But it
frustrating, but at least, I mean, in the end, at least
it
whatever's
helps
the
people.
best, right? As long as it's
It
helping
helps people.
people.
Yeah.
So we go from what is your hottest take to what is your wokest take?
My wokest take.
Mhm.
Oof. Hmm. So many things to talk about. Focus take. I guess in this area and seeing, and I guess my focus take also comes from just my perspective of living here and talking with people and just kind of seeing how people interact. But everyone deserves healthcare. And it might not seem as woke as some people would go, but when it comes down to it, like it's disgusting that we have the like the strongest economy of all time, like in the history of the world, and we cannot keep people from dying in their homes and on the streets. And the fact that we are so, I don't say selfish, but selfish is probably the right word there, that we just can't see beyond that, that we want people to suffer because we had to suffer at some point. We want people to suffer
Yeah.
because we don't think that they work hard enough for it, for something that's in a lot of cases is sometimes out of their control.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't matter anyway. Like we should be able to provide basic human decency to people. I guess along those lines, same lines, like the purpose of the government is to ensure that people are treated fairly and that have a basic decency around that. I had kind of a conversation with someone else about that today, about the argument between that and then like the free capitalist system, to where that's antithetical to this idea of just any sort of capitalistic society. And it is to a degree, but at the same time, like where the point of society is that people are taken of and that we can come together as a collective whole. And we've kind of missed the boat on that. And I think people are entitled to make money. People are entitled to be wealthy without being disgustingly wealthy, I think. But at the same time, if they're doing it at the expense of others by exploiting others through their labor, through their health, then at that point, it's reached a point that it's inappropriate. Um, and that's a really hard concept for a lot of people to reckon with because it's that this idea of the American dream is that they should be able to be wealthy and they're all going to be wealthy, which is ultimately why people don't want to support programs like that, is because in their mind they're taking away their opportunity when in reality we're all getting screwed. And the richest among
Literally.
us, the oligarchs and the corporations and your billionaires are, they're pitting us against each other to 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 basically enrich themselves through this process. We talk about the healthcare system. It's really a sick care system. It's much more profitable to keep people. And I've had people have argued with me about that fact. Like they would much rather get people to be healthy. I'm like, no, it's so much more lucrative to keep people sick and to
Mhm.
to not push out or to patent these drugs for things like my mother before she passed, she had rheumatoid arthritis, and her medication was, and it was covered by insurance. But it was, every time she had an infusion, because she had to basically knock out her immune, she had a rare strain of that. But every time that they'd have a treatment to knock out her immune system, it was probably oh goodness, a quarter to $300,000 per infusion. And my brother's a pharmacist. He's in cancer up in Wisconsin, and he's made comments that some of the drugs he holds are like half a million dollar drugs that he's holding in
Yeah,
his hands, and that's just it's just
it's gross.
it's just mind-boggling that
Yeah.
that could be, a little bitty IV bag can be worth,
Well,
$500,000 for
so
something that.
my mom also has rheumatoid arthritis. Um,
Hmm.
and her injection, she has self-injections. And
Hmm.
one injection, she takes one injection a month, and one vial or whatever it is, EpiPen thing is
Hmm.
$8,000
Hmm.
a
Yeah.
month. And she just got
Yeah.
notification that her insurance is not covering it
Yeah.
after
Then
the
that's
switch up and
that's
stuff. So we're hoping
and
that
that's common.
gets fixed. But yeah.
And
And
that's just not even
without
that's just
that, she can't walk. She can't,
you can't function.
she can't function.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, and
it's
it's hard.
awful. And you're
And that's not
100%
even counting
right
the
on
hospital.
it's not healthcare, it's sick care. We
Yeah.
don't go to the doctor unless we have to because we're already not feeling well or we're already having issues because none of us can afford to. It's
Right. And
great.
even then, that's no guarantee that you're going to be covered. That's a
Uh-huh.
conversation I had yesterday with somebody was just because you have insurance doesn't mean that you're necessarily going to be covered. Like I said, in our our pre-conversation that we should have recorded there about
Right.
like, the weight loss issue there. The surgery for me to get like a weight loss surgery wouldn't have been covered. And I've got good insurance and I had better insurance
Right.
whenever I looked at it. And it's just because I'm a teacher and they don't want to cover that because teachers are typically more sedentary professions and a lot of their minds, and they tend to be there for a long time. So, like, just because you have the insurance doesn't mean that you can get the treatment or the help or the tools that you need
Oh.
to get better.
No, my
It's
father had lung
disgusting.
cancer. He passed away in 22. He had lung cancer and the insurance declined. He needed an MRI scan and
Hmm.
the insurance declined it because his cancer was terminal. That's it. Just because it was terminal. We didn't know how
Yeah.
far it had progressed. We did not know. That's why we needed the scan.
Hmm.
And they would not pay for it because they said, well, he's going to die anyways. Like maybe Joni Ernst answered the phone that day or something. I don't know. Okay, so next question. We have we have a rapid fire question. It's not really rapid fire, it's just we're gonna ask and you say yes or no, and we don't need to have a huge conversation over it, although we can. So
Okay.
rapid fire question number one, are you pro-choice?
Yes, and we need better access to contraception. We need better access to just basic sex education. Again, coming from someone that was pro-life at one point, I understand the argument about that. Like that was totally my mind's view for a very long time, and that's something that, you know, like honestly, personally, that's something that I still struggle with because that's just this mindset that I grew up in, and I can see their side of the argument in terms of where that impacts them personally. However, at the same time, it's a personal choice, and we don't deserve to dictate that, and we shouldn't be dictating what women need, especially in cases where it's like I'm a man, I will never bear a child. I don't have that ability. It really shouldn't be my opinion for that, but no, I
Right.
think that the best option is to ensure that we have better access to, like I said, contraception and other type of birth control methods, and just better education. And for a lot of folks, that will just that always brings down the oopsie pregnancies, like like crazy. And we see that in Democratic administrations as well, that we see at the federal level. Whenever we support those types of programs, that we do see the pregnancy rates for unwanted pregnancies go down.
Yeah. Okay, rapid fire number two, LGBTQ plus rights, specifically trans rights. Where do you stand on those?
Yep, trans rights are human rights. I think what we did was deplorable in this last legislative session, that we stripped rights away from a protected class. People deserve the right to be protected under under their state law. People don't understand this argument, and I think that we politicized it far too much because we've made a boogeyman out of this issue, and we need to come to the table with the people in the community as well as legislators to address this issue like it needs to be addressed. Like we did a disservice by politicizing it and politicizing a very small percentage of people. And really what did it was what was youth sports is really what kind of put the nail in the coffin for that one. And that's something that it is a complex issue, and we can't just we can't address complex issues with
With just
get black
banning
and black
everything?
and white.
Right.
Yeah. It's a much more nuanced approach than just, and we could go in. Now's not the time to go into all the details
Right.
with that, but I've got a lot of thoughts on that, and there again, coming from a lot of different perspectives, there are valid concerns, I think, on both sides of that argument that need to be addressed. I think that the way that we approach that is not by using that as a boogeyman, not by just bringing up this dangerous rhetoric, but by actually having conversations and coming to consensus with the community at the table, and that's how we address these issues, not just digging our heels in the sand, and just, like you said, passing blanket bans on stuff without ever having true conversation and dialogue about this.
Yeah. And I think that that is a perfect example of the Iowa legislature as a whole. And this is not obviously directed at any individual rep that we have, because we have current reps that we absolutely love, and we think have done a fabulous job. But in the end, last legislative session was a glaring example of the fact that our Iowa House reps and Iowa senators were not voting in a way that their communities would want them to vote. They were not voting to protect their communities. They were voting for, like you said, like boogeyman. And I think that they lost the plot a little bit, um, as a whole, and kind of forgot that they were there representing actual people with actual real lives outside of that building. So my hope
Yeah,
is, that we can get some change up in leadership and maybe get some fresh ideas about how we can actually
I
represent
hope
the
so as well.
people, you know.
Right, not
Okay.
talking about culture war issues. Yes.
Yes, I know.
Sorry.
And I will forever say this. I absolutely cannot say, I know why they call them culture war issues. I hate that term so
Do
deeply.
you really? Good to
I
know.
do. Because, well, and I'll tell you why. So I think that when we call it a culture war issue, and again, I know I understand why we refer to those things as culture wars. Um, it also I feel it kind of comes off dismissive of the people on the marginalized side of it.
I
Um,
can see that. Yeah.
do you know what I mean? So
No, I've never thought of it that
it's
way
just
before,
the
but thank
term.
you for that perspective. No, thank you
Yeah.
for that perspective. I will dwell on that some. That's
And I
I've never
think
thought of
we
it that way
all, like,
before.
everybody uses the term. I use the term. I mean, it's across the board. It feels so dismissive to me,
Mhm.
to say that, civil rights being rolled back for trans individuals was a culture war issue, because those people are actually living with the consequences of it. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
anyways, this is not like a schooling lesson. This is I have ADHD and we'll start
I
talking and not
appreciate the
stop.
insight.
Okay, so we have two more questions left. Why should your constituents vote for you?
I guess going back to what I said earlier is first of all, like I'm invested in this community and I stayed here. Like I have, we're seeing a massive exodus from our state, especially in our rural areas like that I'm living in. And I came here willingly, mind you, it was for a job initially, and I thought I'd be gone after 2 years, but I fell in love with the people in the community and I ended up staying and I want to do better by it. So I think that volumes about me. And again, that doesn't belittle anyone that's lived here their whole life, but for someone for an outsider to come here without any family or friends over here and just basically plant off here and then just say, "Hey, I'm going to stay here now and I want to help you out and want to make things better," I think that that speaks volumes. The issues that I'm talking about are also just they're local issues. They are things that benefit the betterment of our communities, whether that be education and making sure that our public education sphere stays strong, the environment, making sure that our water quality is looked at and scrutinized at a much higher level, and trying to get to the basis of why we have these contaminated waterways and what we're going to actually do about it. Like it's ridiculous that that Des Moines this summer had that 20% voluntary reduction because they couldn't filter out the nitrates. Like that's scary. And like even then the legal limits for nitrates are way too high, I think, and that's causing a lot of our issues going back to things like healthcare with cancer as well, and talking about those questions, and then healthcare and just fighting for these issues. Like I'm fighting for issues that matter for our local constituents, and I am willing to do it in a way that is not Democratic or Republican, but like let's just talk about these issues, and I am willing to work with anyone that will get the job done because looking at our rural communities, I'm very blessed to live in a place that has, I call them champions, people that are going to fight for my rural community. We've seen a lot of growth in my small town, and a couple of the towns along this Highway 30 thoroughfare where I live have seen a lot of great investment and growth because we have people that know that we're the ones that have to do the work because the state and the feds, they really could care less what happens to us at this point, even though they like to say they do. They,
Right.
they they don't, and we're the ones that are doing the work in these towns. But not every town has champions or teams like that are doing these things or that can even bankroll those things for them,
Right.
or are willing to apply for those grants to get that done, or have city governments that are progressive enough to be looking to the future and not just trying to make taxes as cheap as possible because that's what people think that they want, without realizing that they're actually shooting themselves in the foot whenever they slash their water rates and they basically don't pay for any infrastructure upgrades. They're left with a $500,000 bill for a new lagoon system that they can't pay for. And that happens in these areas. And we're seeing that in communities around us that they can't afford their water infrastructure upgrades. But we're talking about these issues because we need someone that is going to ensure that these small towns survive, and not just survive, but also thrive. And that's the goal because as we corporate ag come in and drive out these small family farms, which is driving the population down as well. It's driving the other businesses. We're seeing schools consolidate and close. We need people in here that are going to try to bring businesses back, that are going to try to just at short term maintain these communities so they can breathe a little bit and then begin to rebuild. Because we're just seeing them die before our very eyes. In the last 10 years that I lived here, it distraughts me how many communities have seen hard things go on.
Yeah. Okay.
So
And then we want you to share your socials, your website, all of the ways people can get a hold of you.
yeah, totally. So my website is showerforiowa.com. My email is voteforshower@gmail.com. Shower is spelled Schauer, just clarifying that right there. All of my socials, except for my Instagram, are Benjamin Shower for Iowa. My Instagram had an issue this summer to where like I was like blocked out completely. So it's actually Benjamin Shower for Iowa House. It's really annoying. Or Shower for Iowa House. Hopefully at some point I can take back my old handle, but I had to basically start my whole thing from scratch. But I'm
Oh,
on
no.
TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, so all the fun ones right there. And
Perfect.
um, so I'm also
Awesome.
very active with the Harrison County Democrats that can find me there as well if they want to get involved. If anyone from Harrison County happens to see this video, I would love to get you looped in with that because I'm also the Harrison County Democratic chair too. I didn't say that earlier. One more hat that I wear. So
Very nice. You were busy. Okay, so
so
last thing, what's your big ask? What do you need from the people people from your area, people from the state of Iowa? What's your big ask?
Yeah, votes first of all. We turned out a lot of votes. In a district that's 20% Democrat, we turned out 31% of the vote for me for the last election. So, and that's without
Right.
really having a lot of ground game right there. So we've got a win total that we're working toward. Honestly, just exposure and money are the biggest ways to do it. So I tell people that we can do amazing things with a little bit of money in this area, but we can do even more amazing things with a little bit more money than we had last time. So we raised about $15,000 in my last race this last cycle, which for a race my size for a Democrat is actually an impressive amount of money for this area. So our goal this cycle is $30,000 for the whole shebang. So we are about a third of the way there right now, which is exciting. So we're looking
Awesome.
to just basically get that up off the ground and get going because we have a lot of grand ventures. We're planning on opening a campaign office, which we haven't seen in Harrison County in goodness, probably 30 years from what I've been told. Since we were last dominant in the county courthouse structure there. It's been a long time. Looking at some billboards, looking at some just some other means of communication because we've got to reach people in creative ways, especially in the culture that we've seen, especially with ICE kind of on the patrol right there. A lot of people aren't responding to door knocking like they were,
Yeah.
even 2 years ago. A lot of people are afraid to open their doors in some communities or just don't trust people. And a district like mine, where people really haven't ever been canvassed in the last 20 years, they
Yeah.
don't really know what to do with me, and a lot of them don't open the door anyway. So we knock on a lot of doors, but that doesn't mean we see as many as you might see in like a Des Moines suburb, for example. So we need a
Yeah.
lot of volunteers, and we need to paper the district as many times as we can just to get across the point that we are here to talk with you and we want to hear your opinions. So that means going through social media, targeted ads, as well as the physical canvassing and phone banking and postcard writing process that we like to do. So money makes that happen because all those things aren't cheap. So a donation is always appreciated, as well as follows on social. So all the things, just anything you can
All
give
the
is always
things.
helpful.
Amazing. All right, that's it. No more questions. We are all
All
finished.
right.
Yay! Thank you so much for hopping on. I know it's late and I know you had a
Thanks
really
for
busy
having me.
day, so we super appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Layla, you
You'll
got
win
anything
this time.
else?
You'll win this time. It's gonna
That's
be
the
so
goal. Like that is the goal. That is the second time's the charm, and it's an open race. It's an open seat in a
Mhm.
interesting electoral year. So this is the year, kind of like Nixon after Watergate, or after what after Nixon and Watergate. Anything can happen.
Anything could happen. We've got a good feeling.
I've got good vibes for this year in Iowa and nationally, but here in Iowa, I've got good vibes going.
Me
yeah.
too. All right. Well, we will pay attention and keep an eye on things and see how it all goes. Good
Sounds
luck.
great. Thank
Good
you so
luck.
much.
Have a good night.
Yeah, you guys too. Bye.
Gonna make you wonder why you even try. Hard times, gonna take you